The sky was black. Stars blinked weakly in the frozen silence above. Snow fell like ashes, thick and slow. The planet had no name James could remember, just numbers and letters on the screen before it broke. His escape pod had slammed into the icy mountain slope hours ago. Now, it lay half buried in snow, twisted like a broken shell. Smoke still rose from one side, but James had no time to mourn it. He was cold, so cold that even breathing felt sharp like knives. His boots crunched against the snow as he walked. Carefully, the wind howled around him, dragging icy pain into his bones. His hands shook, his jaw clenched. If he didn't find shelter soon, he would die before the next sunrise. He looked around, no signs of life, no buildings, no heat, only snow, trees twisted with frost, silence. But then he saw small overhang rocks pressed together like a natural cave. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. James quickly gathered what he could from the wreck: a survival tent, a flare gun, a heat pack, a sleeping bag, and a few protein cubes. That was it. His suit was soaked from the crash and snow. If he kept wearing it, hypothermia would come faster. Inside the rocky space, James set up the emergency tent. He pushed the heat pack deep under the thin sleeping bag. His fingers were numb, but he managed. The scanner on his wrist blinked red warning. Temperature dangerous. James stripped down quickly, shivering. The suit was frozen stiff. His arms crawled into the sleeping bag. It felt like wrapping himself in cold paper. He cursed under his breath. His teeth chattered, but slowly. Slowly, the heat pack started to work. Warmth began to rise. His body still ached, but at least it was no longer freezing. Then came the sound. Not wind, not snow. Something else crunched. Footsteps. Light ones. Careful ones. James sat up in the bag, eyes wide. He grabbed the flare gun and aimed it at the tent's entrance. The thin fabric moved slightly like fingers, brushing it. Then a shape appeared. Small, shaking, James shouted, "Stay back." But the figure didn't speak. Instead, the tent flap opened slowly. A girl crawled in. She was not human. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing in the dark. Her long hair, white as snow, stuck to her wet face. Her eyes, big and golden, looked at James not with fear, but pure desperation. She wore thin clothes, torn and soaked. She collapsed inside, coughing and gasping. Her lips were turning purple. James stared in shock. What was she? An alien? A child? A refugee like him? She looked barely older than 20, though her alien features made it hard to tell. Her arms hugged herself tightly. Her body shook violently. James lowered the flare gun. "You're freezing," he said, more to himself. The girl couldn't understand his words, but her eyes followed his movements. Her gaze dropped to the sleeping bag. To the warmth? James hesitated. There was only room for one. The girl, trembling, pointed to the bag, then to herself. Her lips moved silently. "Maybe begging," James muttered. "Damn it!" He unzipped the bag and motioned her in. She crawled forward slowly, carefully. And then, before he could stop her, she slipped fully into the sleeping bag with him. James froze. Skin touched skin. Her icy body pressed against his chest. She gasped as the warmth hit her. She clung to him tightly like life, depended on it. She wasn't trying to be intimate. She was trying to survive. James stayed still, heart pounding. The alien girl rested her head against his shoulder. Her breath was fast but slowing. Her eyes slowly closed. Outside, the wind howled harder. Inside the bag, in the silence and shared warmth, two strangers lay together, one human, one alien. No words, no understanding. It's just heat and survival. And far above them, on the mountaintop, something watched, something big, something not happy. James woke before the sun, or whatever passed for a sun on this frozen alien world. The inside of the tent was still dim. Cold mist hung low, and the small heater pack was nearly dead. But what really caught his attention was the emptiness beside him. She was gone. He sat up quickly, confused. The sleeping bag still held the shape of her body, and it was still warm where she had lain, but she wasn't there. The alien girl who had climbed in with him, skin like frost and eyes like sunlight, had disappeared. His heart beat fast, not from fear, but from something else. Concern? Guilt? Or maybe disappointment. James rubbed his face, then grabbed his gear. Couldn't think about her right now. He had to move, find help, food, or at least a way to signal the orbiting fleet. If it was even still up there. He unzipped the tent flap and stopped. A stone sat outside, flat, smooth, perfectly shaped into a circle, with symbols etched on it like it was made by hand or claw. In the middle was a strange glowing line, shaped like a vine curling around a flame. He hadn't seen it last night. She must have left it. A gift, a message, or a warning. He pocketed it and stepped out, scanning the trees and cliffs. Snow crunched softly beneath his feet. The wind was lighter. Now, and strange bird-like creatures chirped far off in the forest. The world looked peaceful. But something didn't feel right then. He saw it tracks, tiny barefoot prints in the snow. Heading away from his camp, he followed them carefully, watching every tree, every shadow. His breath came out in short clouds. After a few minutes, the trees began to thin. The land dropped into a wide clearing, and there, waiting for him, was not one alien girl but a group. At least 10 figures stood in a loose circle around her. They wore cloaks made of fur and leaves. Most were female, some older, with long staffs. A few young ones, painted with strange markings. All had golden eyes and all stared at him with deep suspicion. James stopped. The girl stood at the center, her head bowed. She was dressed now barely in long strands of bark-woven cloth and thin metal jewelry. Her hair had been tied back into a braid, and her neck bore a glowing symbol, the same one that had been on the stone. She looked like someone important now, like a priestess or a bride. James raised his hand slowly. "I'm not here to fight," he said, though they didn't understand. "I didn't hurt her. I was just a tall alien woman with face tattoos stepped forward and shouted something. It sounded harsh, angry." She pointed at James, then pointed at the girl, then at the stone in his hand. The girl suddenly looked up. Her eyes met his and, in that moment, something passed between them. Not language, not logic, something else. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Then she did something James didn't expect. She knelt in front of him, head bowed, arms wide. The others gasped. James froze. What the hell's going on? Of the older alien spoke softly, almost sadly.
"Oh."
Then she drew a line in the snow between them. On one side was James, on the other, the girl. Then she looked at him and tapped her wrist, just like his digital scanner. A timer. Was this a countdown? A trial? A ritual? The girl whispered before dawn, skin to skin, life shared, heat shared. Her accent was thick, broken, but the words hit like thunder. James stared. They thought, they believed he had claimed her. Like mated, no, he whispered. "No, that wasn't I didn't mean," but the aliens didn't move.
Oh.
The girl remained kneeling. The others watched. The line in the snow stayed sharp and cold between them. He thought he was saving a life. But in this world, that meant something more, something sacred, and the countdown had already begun. The line in the snow hadn't faded. James still stood behind it, heart pounding, the carved stone heavy in his hand. The alien girl still kneeling on the other side had not moved since she made that quiet declaration. Before dawn. To skin, heat shared. To her people, that meant more than survival. It meant bond, claim, maybe even marriage. But James never agreed to this. He didn't even understand it until now. Suddenly the crowd shifted. Something massive walked. Out from the trees, he was tall as 8 feet, covered in thick bone armor and painted with red lines across his jaw. Unlike the others, this male didn't wear a cloak. His bare chest was scarred. His golden eyes weren't curious like the girl's. They were filled with fire. The moment he appeared, the air changed. The crowd stepped back in silence. Even the girl looked up, her eyes wide. James could tell this male wasn't just anyone. He was the one she was promised to. And now James was the human who had taken her place. The tall warrior pointed at James and roared. It wasn't just noise. His voice echoed with something ancient, something powerful. And in that roar, James heard a challenge. No translator was needed. The elder, alien woman from before raised her staff. She said a single word. Thurok. The others responded in chorus as if in ritual. Then she looked at James, eyes cold and measuring. She raised her hand and made a simple motion to fists crashing. Together, then pointing to the sky. A trial.combat. James took a shaky breath. You've got to be kidding me. The alien girl stood now, tears building in her eyes. He is chosen. Strong male. Tribe already gave me. To him, James looked at her. But you crawled into my tent. I was dying, she said. Softly. I didn't think I would live. I didn't think you would let me. James clenched his fists. And now what? If I don't fight, what happens? If you walk away, she whispered, he will take me. By force. Right. It is his right. James looked up at the warrior Thurok. He was massive. His arms were the size of James's torso. James didn't even have shoes. But something inside him stirred. Not rage. Not pride. Honor. He hadn't asked for any of this. But if he left her now, knowing what would happen to her, he wouldn't be able to live with himself. James stepped forward, over the line in the snow. Gasps filled the air. Theric grinned. The elder raised her. Staffan slammed it down. The trial had begun. They cleared a circle in the snow. The crowd formed a wide ring. The alien girl stood just outside it, fingers to her lips, eyes full of fear. Theric walked into the ring like a god. Every step shook. The frozen ground. He didn't bring weapons. He didn't need them. He was the weapon. James looked at his own body, bruised, sore, underfed since the crash. But his mind was clear. He was a soldier once. If brute strength wouldn't win, maybe strategy would. The bell was a scream. Thurok charged. James rolled to the side. Snow exploded behind him where the giant landed. He ducked again barely. Avoiding a backhand swing that would have crushed his skull, he was fast. But Thurok was faster than expected. A powerful kick slammed James into a tree. The crowd roared with approval. Blood filled his mouth. "Get up!" the girl cried. James rose slowly, wiping the red from his lip. He looked around trees, snow, rocks, a frozen stream nearby. The stream, it was dangerous. It was weak, and it was. His only chance, he ran toward it. Thurok followed, howling with rage. James jumped across first. He could feel the ice crack beneath his feet, but he didn't stop. He turned around just in time to see the warrior leap after him. Crack, the ice shattered. THA rack. When under the water roared up, swallowing the beast in icy blackness. But James didn't cheer. He ran forward and threw himself to the edge, grabbing one massive wrist before it vanished beneath the freezing current. The crowd screamed, shocked. He pulled with everything he had, and finally, Thurok came out, choking, shivering, defeated. But alive. James rolled over, panting, coughing. He looked up at the circle of alien faces. Then he looked at the girl. Her lips trembled, but her eyes glowed. Asterisk snow melted around Thurok's trembling body as the crowd watched in frozen silence. The mighty warrior who once stood tall, painted in red and pride, now lay soaked and shivering, pulled from icy death by the very man who stole his bride. James stood too barefoot, bruised, his body trembling not from cold, but from adrenaline. The human should have walked away. He could have let Thurok drown. The crowd would have accepted it. But he didn't. He saved him, and that act, expected. Unheard of, sent confusion through the tribe. The elder stepped forward. She looked at Thurok, then James, then the girl. Her eyes were sharp, not angry, not soft. Measuring slowly, she raised her staff and drew a symbol in the air, a spiral with 2 dots inside. James didn't know what it meant, but the people gasped again. Some knelt. Others touched their hearts. The girl whispered, "She invokes the old law, the right of the saved." James frowned. "What's that mean?" She stepped closer. "It means the tribe must now ask me who I choose." The crowd parted. For her, as she stepped into the circle, James stood still, heart beating fast. Theric sat on his knees now, face lowered. He had lost, but pride still burned behind his golden eyes. The girl reached James slowly. Her eyes searched his face. Looked away and shore, still confused, still wounded from both the fight and the meaning behind all this. "Why did you save him?" she asked quietly. James's voice was tired, because if I had let him die, then I would have been no better than him. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned around to face her people. Her voice was clear. "I choose the one who shared warmth with no promise and saved his enemy without fear." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some smiled, others frowned. But no one objected. The elder raised her staff and pointed it toward James. Then came the unexpected part. The girl dropped to one knee. Again, only this time, she was not begging. She was offering herself. And this time, she held something in her hand. The carved stone James had found outside the tent. Only now, it glowed brighter, pulsing softly in rhythm with her heart. She placed it in his palm. James stared at it. "I don't understand what this means." He said, "It means I bind my life to yours," she replied. "You can crush it, and I walk away free. No shame, no hate." James looked down at the stone. It was small, fragile. One squeeze, and it would break. He looked up at the girl, again this alien woman who had crawled into his tent near death, who had turned a survival moment into something far more complex. "I didn't plan any of this," he said. "I know," she whispered. "But you didn't run, even when you could." The crowd waited. James could feel their stares, their weight, their silent pressure. He could break the stone and walk away. No blood. No war, no bond, but he did instead. He held it tight, then gently closed her fingers over it instead. "I don't know your name," he said. She smiled. "I will tell you," she whispered before the next dawn. The crowd exhaled, like a single breath held too long. Then they cheered. Some in song, some in rhythm, others in quiet nods. The elder stepped forward again and handed James a new cloak, stitched with black fur and silver feathers. A mark of someone accepted. Someone. No longer outsider. Someone now claimed, just as much as the girl. But in the shadows, Thorak watched, silent, still burning, and far above, across the cold peaks of the mountain. Another eye blinked open, something that was neither human nor alien, but ancient and hungry. The celebration didn't last long. The tribe had accepted James. The girl had chosen him. The ritual was complete. But something unseen was moving beneath the mountains. It started with a tremor, barely a shiver in the snow. But James felt it while, sitting near the fire beside her, his fingers had just brushed hers. She had started to say her name, and then the ground shifted. Snow cracked. The torches flickered. Alien elders stopped their chants. The girl stood up quickly, eyes wide. "It's too early." James stood too. Too early for what? She turned slowly toward the forest edge, the buried fire. Before he could ask, a loud, grinding noise echoed from deep underground, the kind of sound that makes the back of your teeth ache. Then a strange smell rose into the wind-burnt ash. Sulfur. The tribe panicked. One of the young warriors shouted in alarm. A group of children was rushed away toward the high caves. The elders began throwing dirt onto the fire, snuffing it out. James looked at the girl. "Tell me." She looked back, trembling. "Our ancestors said, long ago, a god of heat fell into the ice. It sleeps beneath the ground. But sometimes, when something new enters our land, it stirs." He blinked. "And I'm that new thing." She didn't answer. Because then, it roared. The snow didn't just crack this time. It split. A jagged tear opened in the earth near the sacred stones. Molten light glowed beneath and steam hissed from the fissure. Something massive was moving. Down there, something that shouldn't be alive. James grabbed her arm. "You have to move." But it was too late. The earth erupted. From the broken ground, huge glowing shape surged upward like a serpent made of lava and smoke. It didn't look fully solid. Its skin was cracked like stone, with magma pulsing underneath, to burning. Eyes scanned the snowy world. Everyone ran, except James and the girl. She had dropped to her knees, whispering old words. Ancient prayers. James pulled her. "We can't stay here." But she wouldn't move. "This thing," he shouted, "it doesn't care about your traditions." Suddenly, the creature's head snapped toward them. Its molten jaw opened from deep inside. A hum began to build. A sound James didn't just hear but felt in his chest, his spine, his skull. He dropped to one knee, clutching his head, and that's when she stood up again. Eyes glowing, not with fear, with something else. She reached into her robe and pulled out the glowing stone. Same one James had almost crushed. "This fire knows the bound," she said, "and now it must choose." James looked up at her. "What are you doing?" She walked forward, toward the creature. The beast leaned closer, towering over her like a mountain on fire. The tribe watched from afar. Hidden in the trees, James shouted again, crawling forward. "Don't?" She turned and whispered, "If it accepts the bond, we live. And if it doesn't," she didn't answer. She raised the stone high in the air. The creature inhaled sharply. Its lava body pulsed. The fire around it shifted, from orange to gold, then to white. The wind stopped. The trees stopped shaking. And then it lowered its head, touching its molten snout to the stone in her hand. Silence. Then the beast turned in slowly. It sank back into the earth, its body melting through the snow and stone like smoke fading into the wind. The ground sealed behind it with a loud snap, and it was gone. James stared in disbelief. The girl fell back into his arms, breathing hard. "I thought it would kill you," he whispered. She looked up at him, sweat and snow on her brow. "It almost did," she replied softly. "But you weren't just new blood. You were accepted blood. Sphesus." James held her tightly, and far away, Theric clenched his fists in the dark, because while the fire god had chosen not to destroy the human, Theric had not. The snow had stopped falling. The ground was quiet again, sealed and cold, as if the fire serpent never rose at all. James sat with her in his arms. Her body was trembling not from fear now, but from exhaustion. She had faced a beast of legend and lived. They both had. The tribe slowly returned from hiding, one by one. Their faces showed awe and fear, not of James, but of the new truth. The fire god had accepted him, human, an outsider. To many this was a sign, to others a threat, especially to Thurok. He watched them from the shadows, his bruised arms folded across his chest. The burn on his back from falling into the ice stream had not healed, neither had his pride. But now he had reason to act. Because, in the old warrior code of his people, when the spirits accepted a false mate, the former chosen one was allowed to challenge not by strength, but by truth. That night, under the pale glow of the twin moons, the tribe gathered once more. Not around fire, around silence. In the center stood James, and beside him, the girl now dressed in silver cloth and carrying the sacred stone still. Glowing from the beast's touch, the elder stepped forward. Her eyes were heavy. "Old law speaks," she said. "When bond is made under doubt, truth must be tested." James frowned. "Truth," the elder nodded once. "Theric calls the bond false. That you tricked her, that you used heat to trap her." The girl's face turned pale. James stepped forward, anger rising. "I never forced her. I didn't even understand your customs." But Thurok's deep voice interrupted. "You slept without clothes," he growled. "You let her in. You touched her skin. You took her warmth. Before the moons had risen fully, that is the ritual hour. James turned to the girl. Is that true? She nodded slowly. Yes, but you didn't know. Thurrock raised his voice, speaking to the crowd now. He did not speak our vows, did not ask permission, did not carry her mark or offer the binding cut. This bond is shallow, weak, built on accident. James stared at him. But it's real. Then, prove it, Thurrock hissed. In the trial of reflection, the crowd gasped. Even the elder looked unsure. No one has done that in generations, she whispered. James looked around. What is it? The girl stepped closer to him, voice trembling. The trial of reflection shows your memories too. All. It forces your heart open. No lies, no hiding. If your feelings are real, they will see it. If not, it will burn you from inside. James's chest tightened. He had no idea if that was magic, tech, or madness, but he looked at her, and he nodded. I'll do it. The next hour was strange. He was led to the sacred pool deep in the ice caves. The water there was perfectly still, glass-like. It reflected not just the body, but the soul. He stood barefoot at the edge, the cold biting his skin. The girl was on the other side. Watching Tatra Rack stood between them. The elder touched James's forehead. When you look into this water, your truth will rise. But if there is a lie in your bond, it will burn. James took a breath, then looked in. The moment his eyes met his reflection, it vanished. He wasn't standing in a cave anymore. He was back in the tent. Back to that night, he saw himself, shivering, tired, alone. Then the girl cold. Nearly dead. He didn't see lust. He didn't see greed. He saw compassion. He watched himself reach out, hesitating, unsure. And finally letting her in, not because he wanted to claim her, but because he couldn't let her die. Then the memories changed. Their first conversation, her teaching him words. Their laughter while hunting snowfruit. The way she looked at him after he pulled her out of a frozen river. All the little moments he'd almost forgotten. They all returned alive, glowing. Real. Then the reflection pulsed, and the water glowed golden. The cave filled with light, and the crowd, because they saw it too. They had seen everything in the water. His truth, his feelings, his pain, his choice, and more than anything, his love. The elder stepped forward, eyes wet. The bond is real, she whispered. He did not trap her. He did not trick her. He simply held her. The crowd bowed their heads. Even Thurrock didn't move, until he turned and walked away. Defeated but deep in the caves, as the lights dimmed, a second set of golden eyes remained watching, and this time they weren't Thurrock's. The sky was dark again. Not because of a storm this time. The stars were simply too bright. They stretched across the heavens like soft rivers of fire, silent and endless. The trial of reflection had ended, and James had passed. But not just passed. The tribe had felt what he had felt, seen his heart through his memories, his loneliness, his care, his quiet choice to hold a stranger, not for gain, but to keep her alive. It changed everything. No more whispers behind his back, no more suspicion. Even the children who once hid now watched him with wide, respectful eyes. Still, James wasn't celebrating. He sat alone at the edge of the high cliff, wrapped in the black silver cloak the elder had given him. Snowflakes drifted around him, soft and harmless, but his thoughts were loud. Would she come? He hadn't seen her since the trial ended. She had looked overwhelmed, like something inside her was breaking open. He understood. She wasn't just an alien girl anymore. She was a symbol now. The first to choose a human, the first to stand against old ways. She carried weight now, too much weight. James looked down at the carved stone in his palm, same one she had given him that night before. The beast rose. It no longer glowed, just a simple stone now. Maybe it meant the bond was over. Maybe it meant she had changed her mind. Then a soft crunch behind him. He turned. She was there, barefoot in the snow. Her braid undone, her ceremonial robes replaced with something simple, her own old traveling cloak. Her cheeks were red from the cold, but her eyes, still golden, still watching him the same way they did in that tent. She sat beside him for a long moment. They didn't speak. Then she whispered, "Your heart was louder than my people's laws." James gave a small smile. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I almost didn't," she said honestly. "Not because of fear, but because I wasn't sure you still wanted this." He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, he reached out. Not because she needed help or warmth or safety, but because he wanted to. She took his hand gently, and then, with her free hand, she placed something small in his palm. A new stone, smooth, carved. Different symbol this time, 2 spirals interlocked. Touching at the center, James looked at her. "This one," she said, "means choice. Not law, not ritual, not survival." He blinked. "You mean," she smiled. "This time, I climbed over you. With my heart." James laughed, softly warm and breathless. And this time, before dawn came, they curled together not to survive, because they had chosen each other far below in the still caves. The fire serpent stirred in its sleep once more, but only for a second. Then it settled. Even ancient gods understand. When something real is born,